Hello and welcome back to Module 8, where we talk about how we can build that trust and use the information that we receive from our angelic guidance. Let's take a look at today's module in closer detail. I'm going to open my slides. Today we're going to learn how to discern angelic guidance from your own thoughts and how you can build confidence in trusting this subtle guidance, how to handle when guidance doesn't make sense, and also what to do when you receive contradictory or unclear messages. Let's dive straight in because there's some really important concepts there. And how can you discern angels' messages versus your own thoughts? Well, angelic guidance, it feels loving and supportive, never harsh, never critical or judgmental. It's peaceful and calm, even when they are delivering important messages. It's encouraging, it's uplifting, it's empowering, and not fear-based in any shape or form. Angels are patient. They don't rush or pressure you. Remember, you always have free will, free choice. And repetitiveness is one of those key things. Angels will often bring you the same messages in a number of different ways or even multiple times. And the messages are going to be neutral or positive. They don't use guilt, shame, or anything negative. Everything about angel messages is about guiding you in a positive way. So do remember that as we go forward. Now, your own thoughts or ego might feel critical, judgmental, or harsh. And I'm sure you've had that experience when that little voice inside your head says to you, oh, you're not good enough, or why are you doing this? What makes you think you could even be doing it? What happens if you fail? And we've all had that. But angels, they don't do any of that. Sometimes it can also affect us if we're anxious, rushed, or pressured. So that can really distort the messages, and they can be fear-based or worry-focused. It can be inconsistent or changing frequently. Now that might have a lot to do with your mood or your state or what's going on out there. And in terms of your own thoughts, it could be based on what you should do, right? As opposed to that guidance that you're receiving from the spiritual realm. It might also be comparative, better than or less than others. Angels don't do that for you. They will only focus on you and the guidance that is for your highest good. And I'd like to give you an example of the messages that I received quite some years ago now, but it was to do with a move of a job. And I'd only just recently got this one job, and I was in a fairly good space. I was getting a steady income and I was nice and settled, but I kept hearing this voice almost. I had this feeling, this nudge pushing me into a different direction. It was almost as if they were saying to me, well, you've done what you needed to do in this job. Here's something better that's coming along, but we're not letting you see exactly what that is. So what do you do? Well, in the end, I absolutely had to trust. I basically quit that job, and within about a week or two, a new job opened up for me. Now, that was a huge, huge leap of faith, but it was absolutely the right thing to do. So even though I had these thoughts of mine thinking, oh, you must be mad. You've got two young girls. You know, how are you going to afford this? What's going to happen? What happens if everything goes wrong? My angels were quietly guiding me in the background, just saying, you know what? Trust us. It will be okay. And I get those crazy goosebumps when I say that, because I'm sure that that message must be resonating with some of you out there. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be associated with a job. It could be associated with a relationship situation. It could be a moving situation. So please trust what you're getting. Your intuitive senses, your angels, your guides, whatever name you want to put on it, is definitely guiding you into a space where it is for your highest good. The key principle here is, if it feels heavy, fearful, or judgmental, it's not the angels, because angels only operate from that space of love. Here are some 3 tests for angelic guidance that you might like to adopt. And the first test is the love test. I know it sounds a little bit corny, but love is the highest vibration. I'm not talking about a romantic love. I'm talking about love as a concept of love. The love that our soul brings to us, the love that our spiritual beings have for us. So the questions you need to ask yourself are, does this guidance come from a place of that kind of love? Does it support my highest good? Remember, angels aren't here to sabotage you. That's not the way they operate. And you can also ask the question, is it kind? Is it compassionate? Would I give this advice to someone I deeply love? Right? So remember, this is test number 1. Test number 2 is the peace test. Even if the message is challenging, do I feel underlying peace? Does following this guidance bring calm or chaos? Is there a sense of rightness even if I'm scared? You know, being a little bit scared is absolutely normal. We are, after all, human beings having this human experience. But on a different level, we are soul beings. So, does this guidance bring calm? And if the answer is yes, then it's probably a good thing. The third test is the repetition test. Have I received this message multiple times? Whether it's through friends, whether it's a song on the radio, whether it's a truck that says on there, go for it, do it, right? Angels can give us messages in all sorts of ways. So if it passes the potential repetitive test, then that's probably a sign for you to start paying attention. Is it showing up in different forms? For example, thoughts, signs, conversations? And does it gently persist over time? Remember, you still have free will, free choice. You can turn around and say, nope, I'm not doing this. That's okay. That is your choice. But if you're testing whether or not it's something that is in your highest good, then the repetitive test is also very useful. Let's give you an example. Now, imagine the scenario is this. You're considering a career change. Your ego might say, you're crazy to leave a stable job. Oh, you'll fail and everyone will judge you. You're not good enough to succeed. You need to stay safe and secure. Now, all of those comments are fear-based, harsh, and focused on external validation. Not too dissimilar from the story that I had and my own experience of moving my job. But it doesn't make it any less relevant. It's absolutely still true. Now, your angels might say to you, your heart is calling you to something new. Trust that you have the skills you need. Take one small step and we'll guide the next. You are supported in this transition. Notice the tone, the change, how it's more love-based, how it's encouraging, how it's focused on growth and trust. Your logical mind might say, let me analyze all the pros and cons. I need to plan every detail before moving. What does the data say? It's very analytical, that's for sure. It doesn't necessarily make it wrong, but it also isn't intuitive. So I'm going to say to you, yes, by all means, use an element of logic, like, yes, let's analyze the pros and cons, but don't make it the be all and end all of your decision, because often logic can keep us safe, whereas our intuitive self, which includes the messages from the spiritual realm, like our angels, is encouraging us to move forward, to go with the growth, to embrace that new thing, right? As long as it's for your highest good. How can you learn to trust subtle guidance? Well, angels whisper. There's nothing loud, there's nothing shouting, it's subtle. And I have already said they respect your free will. Any loud, forceful guidance is usually fear or your ego, and subtle guidance allows you to choose freely. The quietest voice is often the truest. And here's the thing, not only is it about the voice or the whisper, it's also that intuitive sense within yourself, whether it's that feeling of calm, your gut instinct that says to you, you know what, this is right. It could be that inner knowing. Remember, you have a number of clairs that you can draw on. Use your strongest clair to ask yourself, what does that clair say? If it's clair feeling, okay. If it's clair audience, go with it. Ask your angels to tell you the message with your strongest clair for validation. They don't mind. They want to show it to you. So please allow and trust. Now, there might be times when guidance doesn't make sense. It could be that intuitive instinct or feeling to take a different route home. And you might not know it, but you could be avoiding that accident. You might be being nudged to call someone, and lo and behold, they needed help. And that reminds me of a story. Only the other day, I had been calling a friend of mine a few times, and I was quite worried about her because she wasn't answering the phone and there didn't seem to be a way of leaving a message. When I finally got through to her, I said, "Oh, I am so glad that you've answered the phone. I've been so worried about you." Well, guess what? Ended up that she had to go to hospital. She had been quite sick, but that was also why she couldn't answer the phone or deal with any messages. But I was so glad that I followed up with her. That nudge was pushing me to get in touch. You could also get a strong urge to, for example, apply for a job that you don't qualify for, and you get it anyway. Or you could be guided to speak to a stranger, and somehow there might be a message in that, or there might be some guidance. Now, I've had a few of my guests on the show. In particular, I'm thinking of Chris Waco. Do check out that episode on the Angelic Footprints podcast, where she was talking about an experience on her birthday. And she was so drawn to this incredible stranger that she met while she was at a market. Do check out that episode. I don't want to spoil it for you, but see what happened. And it's exactly that, that feeling guided to talk to a stranger that happened to her. How can you trust when it seems illogical? Well, here's a few steps. Check if it passes the 3 tests of love, peace, and repetition. You can start with small acts of trust and build your confidence gradually. You might choose to take one small step. You don't necessarily need to see the whole path. In fact, most times the whole path isn't laid out for you. You can watch for confirming signs. Ask angels to confirm if you're unsure. You can say, could you please give me a message that will make absolute sense to me? Now, if you're a person like me who sees angel feathers, well, a feather might appear. Like I said, you might get a sign in neon, saying, yes, go do it. All of these are subtle ways that angels communicate. And number 5 is release the need to understand everything, because sometimes things get revealed later. It's almost a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. When you start out putting the pieces together, you can't see the whole picture, and spirit work in a very similar way. Building your trust through small steps. Well, you can ask your angels for guidance on something small, like, for example, which route to take. You can follow that subtle nudge and just see what happens. Notice the outcome. You might even like to journal the outcome. And that's where building that evidence that guidance works comes in. Track your journaling notes and gradually trust with bigger decisions. Remember, for a lot of you, you are at the start of this journey of making a connection with angels and your spirit team. And it does take time to build that trust. Remember, baby steps will get you along the way gradually. And why does tracking matter? Well, it builds that unshakable confidence. Guess what? They do actually know what they're doing, and you get to see patterns over time. You have proof that guidance works, and you recognize, or at least you learn to recognize, your angel's unique voice. And when I say voice, it doesn't literally have to mean voice. It can be the signs, it can be the messages, it can be that intuitive gut feeling, whatever that form is. And the more doubt decreases as evidence increases. Remember that as you gain more trust, you learn to just go, you know what, I'm just going to do this. And you learn what type of guidance is most accurate for you, definitely. Which brings us to when guidance is contradictory or unclear. What do you do? Well, you could be receiving guidance from 2 different aspects. There could be your intuition, but there also could be your fear. You could be asking the wrong question. It could be that the timing isn't right yet. Maybe you're not meant to know yet. Maybe you're just meant to choose of your own accord. And you might be hearing multiple angels or guides with different perspectives. Now, that's a really interesting one, because I remember speaking about this in an earlier module, telling you that angels will communicate in a way that they know that you will understand. And some angels, because of the way they have their qualities, might tell it to you in a very direct way, whereas some angels might be a lot more gentle, a lot more soft in how they deliver their messages. It's not that they're wrong, it's just that they're different. If you haven't been listening to the very direct message, well, another angel might get called in to help you hear the more subtle message. All right? And sometimes also you need more information before guidance can be clear. Remember, that timing thing is, it's not what we want in our time frame, it's what the universe deems to be the right time for certain things to occur. we need to trust that there is a bigger plan. And that is one thing that I have learned very much. There is always a bigger plan, even if we're not privy to that information. Now, here are some steps that you can take. You might go to return to stillness. That means quietening your mind and completely releasing any attachment to a specific answer. And I will say that can be very challenging for us when we're in our human form, having a lot of conflict going on and feeling out of sorts. But it's still a good piece of advice. Step 2 is that you could ask better questions. For example, instead of, should I take this job? You might ask, what do I need to know about this job? Remember, sometimes jobs or situations that we go into might not necessarily be what we think are the right thing for us, but there's bound to be a lesson or a bigger picture aspect that we don't always know about until much later. Instead, is this relationship right? Ask, what is this relationship teaching me? And step 3 is, again, you can ask for a clear sign. Be specific and set a reasonable deadline and trust what you receive or even don't receive. Sometimes wait is the guidance. We're human. We want things now. We want things yesterday. We want it to be rushed. Again, that's not how the angels and the spirit world works. In terms of how angels work behind the scenes, well, you may not see the results immediately, but trust that doors are being opened that you don't know about yet. People might be being moved on your behalf. Maybe this step over here needs to happen before the step that you're wanting to happen can occur. So we have to wait for this. Timing essentially is orchestrated perfectly, even if it doesn't always seem that way. Obstacles are being cleared invisibly. Your path is being prepared. That is what ultimately is so important to remember. And if you're having those moments of doubt where you might be feeling frustrated, come back to these slides to give you that reassurance. Signs that guidance is working even when you can't see it. Well, you might feel at peace because despite uncertainty, you're not anxious about the outcome. You're trusting the process. Synchronicities might increase. Random, helpful conversations might occur. You might see some coincidences happening, or there might be a visible difference that you see with the timing of things that are going on around you. Doors close. Remember, this is a good thing. The wrong opportunities fall away easily. You are being protected from the things that aren't right for you. No is actually protection. So those are important messages as well. The right people might appear. Someone with exactly what you need shows up, and helpful connections come seemingly out of nowhere. It's that support that arrives unexpectedly. Remember, you're being prepared. You're learning the skills that you need. Your character is being strengthened, and you are growing into the person who you need to be to accomplish that next step. And there you go. You now have the tools to discern true guidance, even if it is subtle. Track your accuracy and know what to do when guidance is unclear and how to know when it is working, even if you can't see it. In our next module, we'll explore daily practices that will help you maintain this connection every single day. Until then, I invite you to journal what happens when you ask for help with one specific situation. For example, around a work or job situation, around a business, or around relationships. Trust what you receive. Take on board the message. What happened? Did it come about? And how? So have a look how that might help you. Remember, journal this so that you've got that information for later. If you like, I'd love you to also please put an accountability post into the chat, letting us know how you went with this particular module. What did you learn that was new? What did you already know? And what has worked for you? Until the next module, which is going to be module 9, your 2 modules from the end, I look forward to seeing you soon.